So this is the second part of video 3 on the Major Arcana in my Intro to Tarot series. We've just finished the Strength card, and we've written down our own meanings in our tarot journal or notebook, and now we're going to go to the next card in the Major Arcana. After Strength comes the Hanged Man. And the Hanged Man is all about sacrifice, a time of waiting and patience, and that might end up feeling difficult to experience, and yet it is necessary for us to experience. When we see the Hangman card, a lot of times Odin and the Tree of Life ends up coming up, him hanging on that tree and learning the lessons that he needed to. The Hangman in shadow can also be talking to us about martyrdom, where we're giving away so much and we are not experiencing boundaries that are essential for us to have in our life. But the Hanged Man's message is always that kind of pensive moment of waiting when you're wondering, how much more of this can I take? So that's the next step in your circular journey with the tarot. We've all experienced those moments, and they are necessary to push us into the next card, which in the numbering of this card, which is Death, is number 13. And this card can be scary for a lot of people, but it's essential to remember that death equals change, and that is necessary for movement within our lives. We can't be stagnant. That's not what we're here for. That's not our purpose. So death is a necessary part of the journey. When the Death card shows up, yes, it can indeed represent a physical death, but quite often the Death card is talking about an inner change or change within our life that needs to occur, something that needs to die so that we can move on to a higher or better state of being. And a lot of times it's sudden and it can be painful, but it is always necessary, and there is always a way through to the other side. So go ahead and write down your own meanings for each of these cards, as we've been doing all along. Write down what comes to mind for you as you see the Death card, whatever it is, even if it's fear and being scared. After the Death card, we have the Temperance card. In the Thoth deck, Temperance is art, and what always comes to mind to me whenever I see the Temperance card is alchemy. It is sacred spiritual magic. It is the fusion of two opposites to create something new that needs to occur within our lives. And so a lot of times the message is one of inner transformation, but it can also be talking about compromise and patience. So go ahead and write down the meanings that you have as you're looking at the Temperance card. And I think the Temperance card is gorgeous in this deck. After Temperance comes the Devil. I mean, this is another card like Death and Justice that can be a little frightening for some people. And I love the depiction of the Devil in this deck because the Devil is represented by Pan and two angels in this deck. Yes, a message of the Devil card is addiction and temptation, and it's important to recognize that. But it can also be about a sexual form of spirituality, and acknowledging the beauty of our own inner animalistic side that it's essential to have. And Pan is a wonderful representation of that. And the Green Man and the Horned God as well are important representations of the Devil, and it's important to remember as we're working with the energies of this card. So you can go ahead and write down what comes to mind for you as you look at this. And again, fear, addiction, and temptation are also a message. But you will notice, especially if you have a Rider-Waite-Smith deck, that the chains that are keeping Adam and Eve, or the male and the female bound in that card, are easily slipped off. They are choosing to be enslaved by their fears and addictions. That's an important message as well. After the Devil comes another card that can be scary for some of us, and that is the Tower. The Tower is all about an upheaval and a change that needs to occur because the foundation is rocky and not firm. It's going to fall apart anyhow, and so something needs to happen to make it fall apart, because perhaps you've been afraid to change what you've created and what you're living at this time. And so something sudden and perhaps violent but necessary needs to happen. And that's the message of the Tower. Dramatic and necessary change is called for, and it's going to happen, and it's necessary for it to happen. After the Tower, we move into a more optimistic way of being, and that is represented by the Star. And she is all about optimism, hope, wishes, and faith, and dreams. And realizing that what we choose to dwell on and focus on creates our reality. And we can choose to focus on the positive and believe in ourselves and others. And through that comes a better future than what we were experiencing before the tower. So she is a positive and necessary movement of change in the circular journey of the tarot. After the star, we step back into mystery with the moon. And so you can go ahead at this time and write down your meanings, what comes to mind for you as you are looking at the moon in your own deck. The moon is all about labyrinths, mystery. It's very, very feminine and receptive. And so it can have to do with gossip and lies, but it can also have to do with being brave enough to get in touch with our shadow side and to learn the lessons that we are experiencing through what we're afraid of doing or becoming or facing in our lives. The moon is deep magic and a necessary part of the tarot journey. After the moon, we step into a space of truth and belief and light with the sun. So go ahead and write down your meanings for the sun in your tarot journal. But when I see the sun, I always think of the acknowledgement and belief in our own intrinsic divinity within ourselves. We are all divine. Whatever your spiritual beliefs, there is a part of ourselves and our traditions that always acknowledge whether you believe we were created from God or whatever you choose to believe, that there is a part of you that is divine and that is made in, if you're a Christian, God's image. If you're pagan, that is a part of the goddess and the god. Whatever you choose to believe, the sun is all about that truth and feeling that and experiencing that in your life and experiencing good because of that belief in your life. After the sun comes the Judgment card, and this is another card that can scare some people. The representation in this deck is very different than in the Rider-Waite-Smith deck, where you see people rising up from their graves, and they've been judged. That's what Judgment talks about. Judgment is the elemental trump of fire, and so it is all about, again, reaping what we've sown, but also experiencing clarity due to a washing away or a trial by fire of that which doesn't serve us. So we're able to make decisions and realize that we have to stand up for ourselves and what we believe in, or we're just going to keep experiencing more things that we don't want to experience in our lives. The Wheel of Fortune will ensure that we keep experiencing the same things over and over so that we learn the lessons. And the Judgment card is about, are you choosing to learn the lessons or not? So go ahead and write down your meanings for the Judgment card. After Judgment comes card numbered 21, but it is card number 22 in the Major Arcana, and it is the World. And the World is all about the ending of the cycle that you started with as the Fool, and the fulfillment and enjoyment and celebration of knowing that you've climbed to the top of this mountain, that you've done it, that you've experienced so many different ways of being, so many different steps in the journey, and it's all come together now. Here you are. It's beautiful. It's an ending, yet it's also a beginning, because you know that as soon as you leave the world, you're stepping back into the Fool and you're starting yet another journey. So go ahead and write down your meanings for the World from what you are gathering from your deck. So now that you've looked at each of the 22 cards of the Major Arcana, and I am shuffling because I have been working with the cards, and it's just a way that I choose to honor the cards. You can do that if you'd like at this point in time. Now that you've written down individual meanings and feelings and interpretations for each of the cards, just very quickly, you might like to take some time after this video, after you finish watching this video, to write down your feelings about the Major Arcana as a circular journey as a whole. What do you see? What have you experienced in your own life that follows this journey? Because all of us at one point in time or another have been in each of these archetypes, and we will be again. There's always something to learn from the Major Arcana, from the whole tarot. but especially the major arcana. And when the major arcana show up for us in readings, they are talking about big issues in our lives, big things, important milestones, important difficulties or trials, or amazing things that are happening that it's essential for us to experience. So write down your feelings about the major arcana as a whole, and then go ahead and take a look at the cards that you wrote down as your most favorite, your least favorite, and the card that you felt nothing about when you started this journey with the tarot that we talked about in the first video in this series. Revisit those cards and see what you think and feel about them now and what they have to teach you now that you've created some of your own meanings for the deck. Once you've done that, if you want to, you can choose to go through the book or the little white book that came with your deck and look at the traditional meanings that the author of the deck that you own has decided to include with the deck. Are they similar to what you've heard me say and what you've felt as you've been looking at the cards, or are they completely different? Do you agree or disagree with them? You can go ahead and write that down. But either way, spend some time getting comfortable with the major arcana and experiencing what they mean to you. They're essential cards in the tarot. They're very, very important. And some people choose to work completely with just the 22 cards of the major arcana. They don't use any of the others. That's how unique these cards are and how important they are. So it's important to spend a lot of time with these cards. And journaling is a great way to do that, and I highly recommend that you spend time doing that. So once you get done journaling, then you can choose to shuffle the cards, put your cards back together, thank the cards, and ground yourself before you step back out into the real world. And I would love to hear your insights and comments about your journey with the major arcana. So please feel free to share those with me. And I will see you in the next video, part 4 of our journey with Intro to Tarot. We're going to be talking about the court cards. So I will see you soon. Thank you.